Hey everyone, welcome back to Horror Reddit Stories for You, where we dive deep into the darkest corners of real-life terror. I'm your name, and if you're here, you probably thrive on those spine-tingling tales that blur the line between nightmare and reality. On this channel, we explore everything from unexplained vanishings in remote woods to sinister encounters in everyday places, all narrated with that immersive chill to keep you up long after the lights go out. Whether it's creepy urban legends, disturbing true crime dives, or bizarre paranormal happenings, we've got you covered. Think shadowy figures in abandoned asylums, cryptic messages from the deep web, or those eerie backwoods stories that make you question what's lurking just beyond the treeline. If you're a fan of channels like Mr. Ballin for his strange, dark, and mysterious vibes, or Wendigoon's deep dives into the macabre, or even the atmospheric horror of Nexpo, you'll fit right in here. Today, we're tackling a theme that hits close to home, literally. Moving into a new house is supposed to be a fresh start, full of excitement and new beginnings. But for the unlucky folks in these stories, it became a descent into pure horror. From walls that whisper secrets to basements hiding unspeakable truths, these are 8 true scary new home stories, submitted by viewers just like you. These aren't your average ghost tales, they're grounded in the terrifying what-ifs of real life, with a dash of the unknown to amp up the fear factor. A quick note, all stories are shared with permission from the original tellers. We've kept them anonymous where requested, but the details are as they described. Buckle up, dim the lights, and let's get into it. If things get too intense, remember, you can always pause, but will you? Story 1 starts right now. This one comes from a guy named Mark, who reached out from somewhere in the Midwest. He says this happened about 15 years ago, when he and his girlfriend finally scraped together enough for their first real house. It was an old Victorian fixer-upper in a sleepy suburb, tall ceilings, creaky floors, the works. They got it cheap because it had sat empty for years, but Mark figured a little elbow grease would turn it into their dream spot. The move-in day was chaotic, boxes everywhere, paint fumes lingering from a quick refresh job. His girlfriend, let's call her Sarah, was thrilled about the big kitchen and the wraparound porch. Mark. He was more focused on the weird vibes from the start. The house had this echo, like every sound bounced back a little too long. But hey, old houses, right? That first night, they crashed early, exhausted. Mark woke up around 2 a.m. to what he thought was Sarah mumbling in her sleep. He rolled over, but she was out cold. The mumbling continued, soft, like a conversation just out of earshot. He sat up, heart pounding, and realized it was coming from the wall behind their bed. First, he chalked it up to neighbors or maybe pipes settling. But as he pressed his ear to the plaster, the voices clarified. Not words exactly, but fragments. Hide it, don't let them find. It sounded like 2 people, a man and a woman, arguing in hushed tones. Mark shook Sarah awake, but by then, it had stopped. She laughed it off as his imagination playing tricks after a long day. The next morning, Mark inspected the wall. Nothing unusual, just faded wallpaper with a floral pattern that screamed 1970s. He peeled a corner back, half expecting wires or vents, but it was solid plaster over brick. No gaps, no holes. Still, the incident nagged at him. That night, it happened again. This time, clearer, the box, bury it deeper. Sarah heard it too, her face paling in the moonlight. They grabbed flashlights and searched the room, but silence. Over the next week, the whispers escalated. They'd happen randomly, during dinner, while watching TV, even in the shower. Always from different walls, like the voices were moving through the house. Mark started recording on his phone, capturing faint audio that sounded like please, please, no more, let me out. Sarah wanted to call a priest or something, but Mark, being practical, hired a home inspector. The guy found nothing, no mold, no infestations, no structural issues. But as he was leaving, he mentioned offhand that the house had a history. Back in the 1920s, it belonged to a bootlegger who hid liquor in secret compartments during Prohibition. Rumor was, he stashed something else too, maybe cash, maybe bodies. The inspector laughed, but Mark didn't. That night, the whispers turned to screams. Not audible to the ear, but in their heads. No, from the walls, raw, agonized cries echoing through the plaster. Sarah bolted upright, clutching her ears. Mark grabbed a hammer and, in a panic, smashed a hole in the bedroom wall. Dust flew, and behind the plaster, a small, sealed metal box. They pried it open with trembling hands. Inside, yellowed letters, dated 1923. Confessions from the bootlegger's wife about poisoning her husband and walling up his body in the basement to claim his fortune. But the last letter. It was from the husband, scratched in blood. She's lying. She buried me alive. The walls remember. Mark and Sarah didn't sleep. They called the police at dawn. Cops dug up the basement floor and found skeletal remains, male, with signs of starvation. The house's echo was no acoustic trick. Experts later said the walls had absorbed vibrations from the man's final pleas, replaying them like a warped phonograph when conditions were right: humidity, temperature shifts. They sold the house at a loss and moved to an apartment. Mark says he still hears whispers sometimes, even in silence. Moral: some homes don't just have history, they trap it. All right, that was chilling. Let's move to story 2. This one's from a woman named Elena, shared from the Pacific Northwest. About a decade ago, she inherited a cozy cabin from her estranged aunt. It was nestled in the woods, perfect for her as a writer seeking solitude. The place was quaint: log walls, stone fireplace, and an attic she'd never explored during visits. Moving in felt like a reset after a bad breakup. Elena unpacked, set up her desk by the window overlooking the pines, and dove into her novel. But from day one, odd things happened. Scratching sounds from above, like nails on wood. She figured squirrels or raccoons, common in rural spots. One rainy afternoon, bored of writing, she pulled down the attic ladder. Dust motes danced in her flashlight beam as she climbed up. The space was crammed with boxes, old furniture, and cobwebs. Nothing sinister, just forgotten junk. But in the far corner, under a tarp, she found a child's rocking horse, painted faded red, with eyes that seemed to follow her. That night, the scratching turned rhythmic, like a lullaby tapped out. Elena ignored it, but dreams plagued her: a little girl in Victorian dress, rocking endlessly, whispering, "Find me. I'm cold." The next day, curious, she rifled through the boxes. Photo albums from the 1800s showed her aunt as a child, but one picture stood out: a girl who looked just like her dream visitor, labeled Lillian, 1892 to 1898. Cause of death: unknown illness. Elena brushed it off as coincidence, but the rocking started. Not sounds, the actual horse downstairs, moving on its own. She'd wake to creaks, find it shifted positions. Once, it was at her bedside, those eyes staring, desperate. She contacted a local historian. Turns out, the cabin was built on an old homestead where a family lost their daughter to a fever. They couldn't afford a proper burial, so they interred her in the attic floorboards, common back then for remote folks. Elena dug under the tarp. Sure enough, a loose plank revealed a small coffin. Inside, tiny bones, wrapped in decayed cloth. She called authorities. They reburied Lillian properly. The rocking stopped, but Elena swears on quiet nights, she hears a child's giggle from the woods. She sold the cabin. Solitude lost its appeal. Story 3 time. This comes from a family man named Carlos, down in the Southwest. A few years back, Carlos, his wife Maria, and their 2 boys upgraded to a spacious ranch-style home in a gated community. It was a steal. Previous owners left suddenly, citing personal reasons. The boys loved the pool. Maria adored the garden. Carlos. He noticed the next-door neighbor right away, an older man, always peeking from his curtains. At first, it was harmless. Waves ignored, small talk dodged. But then, shadows. Carlos would catch glimpses in his peripheral, a figure in their yard at dusk, vanishing when he turned. Security cams showed nothing. One evening, while barbecuing, the boys screamed from the pool. A handprint on the glass door, inside the house. Carlos checked rooms, empty. That night, Maria woke to breathing beside her bed. Not Carlos, he was downstairs working. They installed more cameras, alarms. Footage revealed a man crawling through vents. No, impossible. But the shadows persisted, elongated figures on walls, mimicking family movements. Carlos confronted the neighbor. The old man smirked. "This was my house once. I know all its secrets." Turns out, the previous owners were his relatives. He'd built hidden passages between the homes for family visits. But after a fallout, they sealed most, except one. Police raided, found a crawlspace linking attics. The neighbor had been sneaking in, watching, stealing mementos. Motive: obsession with reclaiming his space. Carlos moved the family out. The house burned in a mysterious fire months later. Shadows follow him still, in dreams, moving to story 4, submitted by a young couple from the East Coast. Jake and Emily bought their first condo in a converted mill building, industrial chic, exposed bricks, high ceilings. The basement storage unit came included, perfect for holiday decor. First visit down there, musty, dim, with echoes amplifying every step. They stored boxes, locked up, forgot about it. Weeks later, Jake heard knocking from the vents, rhythmic, like Morse code. Emily dismissed it as plumbing. But the knocks formed patterns. SOS repeated. One stormy night, power out, they grabbed flashlights from the basement. Descending, the knocks loudened, from behind a bricked-up wall. Jake chipped away, revealed a small room. Inside, old journals from the 1940s, detailing a worker trapped during a factory collapse, surviving days by knocking signals. He died waiting for rescue, but the horror. The journals ended with, "They're here now, the others who didn't make it." Since then, knocks continue, not SOS, but names. Jake. Emily. They sealed it back, but echoes whisper through the building. Neighbors hear them too. Story 5. From a retiree named Doris in the South. Doris and her husband bought a charming cottage with a sprawling garden, roses, veggies, the works. Digging for a new flower bed, her spade hit something hard. A box. No, a small casket. Panicked, they called cops. Inside, animal bones. No, forensic test. Human infant, century-old. Research revealed the property was a midwife's home in the 1800s. Unwed mother's babies disappeared, buried secretly to hide scandals. More digging unearthed 3 more. Garden yielded whispers at dusk. Baby cries on wind. Doris planted over them, but flowers wilt unnaturally, forming shapes. Names of the lost. She lives there still, tending her garden. Cries lull her to sleep. Story 6, shared by a tech guy named Alex from California. Alex snagged a modern smart home, voice controls, automated everything. The master bath had a full-wall mirror, reflecting infinity style. First night, he saw a flicker in the reflection, not his movement. A shadow hand waving, glitch. He reset the system. But nights later, the mirror showed rooms reversed, furniture moved, figures lurking. 1 dawn, it reflected him sleeping. While he stood watching, experts said electromagnetic fields warp perceptions. But Alex found scratches inside the glass. Trapped here, join us. He shattered it, found a hidden camera feed from previous owners, voyeurs who mirrored lives. Shadows wave in new mirrors now. Story 7, from a single mom named Lisa in the Midwest. Lisa and her daughter moved into a grandfather clock-filled Victorian. Clocks ticked asynchronously, driving her mad. Adjusting them synced for hours, then desynced, chiming at odd times. 1 chime revealed a hidden door behind a clock. Inside, gears, levers, a mechanical maze. Diaries found. Original owner, a clockmaker. Built traps to time lock. Intruders. Daughter vanished one night, found in a gear room, whispering, "Time stops here." They escaped, but clocks chime in her head, counting down. Final story, from a veteran named Tom in New England. Tom bought a seaside cottage, cellar flooded seasonally. Bailing water, he found submerged chains. Diving deeper, a submerged cage, skeletal hand clutching a locket. History, smugglers drowned rivals there during tides. Now, high tide brings apparitions, drowning figures reaching up. Tom boards it shut, but water seeps, carrying pleas, pull me up. He hears drowning gasps in waves. Phew, those stories remind us, sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones hidden in plain sight, or under your floorboards. If you made it through, hit that like button if any gave you chills, and comment below, what's your worst new home fear? Buried secrets. Creepy neighbors.